Okay, we're going to do a video about the prices of the prices of Chinese pottery, and the first thing really I'd like to say is that to reassure anyone who is starting looking at the prices, to be aware that certainly in my opinion that most of the experts are not as expert as they claim. Other than a handful of scholastic experts, I would say most auctioneers in this country, England, are to a degree guessing. And the reason I say that is because I know factually and numerically that if I consign a lot into an expert sale like I have done, and you take a pot in from 1700 and you say to the expert what's it worth, he will say £20,000. So if it is put into an auction with his data or her database of 600 clients from England and China and America, and it fetches £5,000, for example, I think to myself, what a fool. If I take a vase into an auction house with a specialist department in London, again, he or her, the expert, FRICS, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, they have all the education, and they say it's worth £500. I'll say, well, sell it please. It fetches £6,000 when they thought it would fetch £500. I know they don't know what they're doing. And my experience of experts in England, in the specialist Chinese sales, are they don't know what they're doing. They're great on big talk, they're great on lovely catalogues and grandiose descriptions, and they're very, very verbose, and they throw lots of jargon at you and lots of technical knick-knack words and stuff like that. But when it comes to the money, when it comes to the prices, the difference between the prices fetched and the prices they think it will fetch are so wide, you can only deduce that they're amateurs. That's my personal view. I think a lot of it's guesswork. But what they're going on is the prices of similar goods for sale in England, which could be auction, private sale or retail. They're going on the last time they sold something similar. They're going on what the buyer expects to get for it. They're going on what a customer has to spend. So that they're bridging these different disparate viewpoints, and they're trying to cobble together a market value as agents. That's their job, to bring the price together between a seller and a buyer. But as I say, I'm desperately disappointed in the professionalism of the auction houses in England when it comes to Chinese pottery. And as I say, I don't think they know what they're doing on the whole. That's my personal view. So if you're coming into the market, don't be worried about not knowing anything about it, because a lot of the experts don't know anything about it either. And my personal comments are based on my own experience in the trade, where I put my own money where my mouth is. I buy stuff, I sell stuff, I keep stuff. I make some mistakes, I make some good buys. Okay, so we're talking about the price. Why are some things expensive in China and some things not? I think if I had to give you a sort of fundamental description, I'll try. Right. The yellow is the imperial colour. That is an obvious one. Age is another factor. Rarity is another factor. Quality is another factor. If you look at this vase here, this is a very ordinary vase, and the reason it's ordinary is it's an ordinary size. An emperor is not going to want to have a vase like that on the floor in his lounge, is the wrong word, in his room chamber. That is a touristic size, it's an export size, it's an affordable size, and same applies to this and this. These are what were in their day bric-a-brac or trinkets. Nowadays they're considered differently, they're expensive items nowadays. But that is a non-important size. These four are decorative, they are vases, they are one type of pottery. This here is a tea can, or a tea canister, or a teapot. That is distinct from the vases. These can't be used for anything other than decorative purposes. This is a utilitarian shape. It is a household item. It's a houseware, and it is not, again, ever going to be that expensive, because it is, as I say, a household item. When it comes to plates and saucers and teacups, and tea saucers and jugs, it's a similar story. They are generally less expensive than the vases. So what I'm trying to give you here is some dimensions. When it comes to gold, that is a very good sign of quality. For example, on this Famil Rose, in an early piece, you will find lots of gold. In later decades and centuries, there's less and less gold. And in some of the 20th century Famil Rose and Famil Vert, the greens get louder to what is currently nowadays they use really quite an unpleasant dark green. So I hope I'm helping you with the prices. So marketing, if you put a vase in a sale in London and you put it in a glossy catalogue and you put it in the context of other fine items from the Far East, for example, lacquered furniture, a brass censer, and carved ivory, carved jade, silk kimonos, Japanese swords, whatever it is, if you put it in the context in a sale room situation or retail situation, it's going to be more money. If you sell it if it's sold in isolation in a sale room in the middle of Scotland, where the next lot is a toilet and the lot before was a wheelchair, general sale, it's going to have a lower price. So the presentation is another issue. The auction houses in England charge really high selling and buying fees, and they can afford to make glossy catalogues and lovely websites and somewhat florid descriptions, verbose descriptions to puff it up. But price is another dimension to pricing, is the presentation. Condition is another dimension to pricing. Traditionally, anything with even the most minor damage was frowned upon by collectors, and it's still the case. But marginal damage is becoming slightly more accepted. Some of the old pieces have got inherent defects, for example, grit in the glaze and unevenness in the glaze, and then firing cracks and bubbles in the glaze on the surface. That's an inherent congenital, if you like, defect. And then there is nibbling, where you have microscopic chips along on the top and the bottom. That again is becoming more accepted. And one of the reasons England is very hot with Chinese pottery is because so much of it was taken from China or sold by China, whichever way you want to look at it. Because there's so much of it in England and Britain, bought for the houses and the collectors and the shops and the households, that there's a large residual stock in England. And though there is some fakery in England and some reproductions, the vast body of the Chinese pottery in England is bona fide. And the Chinese buyers in China know they buy China from England, back from England. There's a high chance it's going to be authentic. And there are some experts who know what's right and what's not, although I've been very rude about the auctioneers on the whole. The market is driven by the repatriation market in China. A lot of the good Chinese pottery is going back to China, and it's Chinese buyers who are driving the market. And if they find something really special, really notable, often size comes into it, as I say, the yellow comes into it. If they find something wonderful, they will throw their resources at it. And the Chinese have got a lot of money, and they want to bring back their stuff back to China. They want to buy back into their culture and have the stuff around them. And it's rather like the Americans. 50 years ago, the Americans were coming to England buying American flags, pictures of George Washington, bells, weapons from America, federal furniture, chestnut furniture, cherry furniture. So it's the same thing. There is a move for stuff to go back to where it's from. The Indian market now is growing. A lot of the wealthy Indians are buying Anglo-Indian, colonial, early Indian stuff, whether it's jewellery or weaponry. I'm thinking in my mind of Tipu Sultan. They're buying all that stuff back, for example. Okay, so we've talked about price. I haven't given you all the answers. I've just given you some other dimensions to think about. It is complicated, but the way to master it is to start buying stuff, start collecting it, and observe the market. You have the auction houses, which publish prices. You have the shops, the fairs, where you can go and look at stuff. You can go to the auction viewings and handle the stuff. And you have to pick it up, you have to handle it, live with it and try. Okay, hope that's been helpful.